Hello, welcome to another video. This is a completely different series to usual. This is a devlog. So what is this devlog for, you ask? Well, I'm starting a new game. It's going to be a 2D platformer with the resolution being 320 by 180, similar to how Celeste is. The reason for it being 320 by 180 is that it's easier to work with, and I'm planning on making the game be a pixel platformer, meaning that I need to ensure that everything is pixel perfect. So, I am going to be discussing everything I have done in week 1 today. In week 1 I started the project. I named it 2D Platformer Game because the name wasn't decided yet. I wanted to get the basic movements done. So as soon as I loaded the project, I started creating folders for everything I needed. The assets folder being where all my assets go, and the builds folder where all the builds will be. In the assets folder, I created 10 folders: audio, fonts, prefabs, raw files, scenes, scripts, shaders, sprites, tilesets, and UI. In the audio folder, I created 2 folders: sound effects and music. In the raw files folder, I created 3 folders: sprites, tilesets, and UI. These are where the PNG files for sprites, tilesets, and UI elements will go. In the scenes folder, I created 2 folders: underscore debug and final. Underscore debug will contain the debug scenes such as a test scene. Meanwhile, final will be where all the menus and levels will be saved. In the scripts folder, I created a folder called power-ups for all the power-up scripts and a folder called autoload for all the autoload scripts. In the sprites folder, I have a folder called frames where all the sprite frame resources will go. And in the UI folder, I have created a HUD folder for the HUD scene. What is a HUD? It is a heads-up display. It's what shows on the screen while playing. Like in this example, you can see the health at the top left and the power-up timer in the top center. Once I've done setting up the folders, the first thing I did was create a placeholder sprite, which would be a white square with a face. This would be the player as a test. I then created a character body 2D and called it player. I then started to add all the nodes I needed, such as the straight 2D node and the collision shape 2D node. I also ensured that the player's collision layer was set to 2, since that would be the player's collision layer. I called the layer player and called collision layer 1 level for the level collision. I then created a blank character body 2D script and set the class name to player. This will make things easier for a lot of systems I'll be implementing. Next, I added a bunch of variables like the health variable, the speed variables, the gravity variable, the jump velocity variable, and the input direction variable. I also ensured that the variables that should be configurable are export variables. Next, I added 3 built-in functions: ready, process, physics process. Then I created a custom function called handle movement. This function would handle the walking movement. Then I created another function called handle gravity, where the gravity would be handled. I code these functions in physics process since this function is for all the physics. I made sure that when the player is not on the floor, gravity is then applied to the Y velocity. I also added a jump mechanic in the handle gravity function. I also made sure to create 6 input maps for left, right, up, down, jump, and sprint. Once I finished all the fundamentals, I created a placeholder tileset to test all this out, and it works completely fine. I then started working on 3 power-ups: jump boost, speed boost, and invincibility. These 3 power-ups would only be temporary power-ups since the player would be too OP to have them for the rest of the level. I started with a jump boost power up, so I created an area 2D node called jump boost and added everything I needed into that node. I then created a power up script where the power up wait time would be defined. This would be so I could easily configure the wait time for the power up timer node in my player node. I also created an onBodyEntered function in the power up class so that I can add a signal for when a body enters the power up area. I made sure that the code in that function only runs if the body is the player. I don't want any other nodes somehow triggering the code now, do we? Next task was to create power-up variables in the play script, such as the jump boost variables. Each power-up would change the color of the player's clothing, so we had to define a color for each power-up. Then we needed a sideways boost variable and an upward boost variable for each power-up. Then we wrote what happens when we get each power-up. So when you get a jump boost power-up, your clothes turn green and you can jump higher than normal. When you get a speed boost power-up, your clothes turn blue and you can walk and run faster than normal. Finally, when you get an invincibility power-up, your clothes change colors to each color on the hue spectrum, and you can insta-kill any enemy and you can't die for a certain amount of time. You also have speed boost and jump boost. This will be for later levels, however, rather than early levels. I also created iframes so that when you're hit, you're invincible for a few milliseconds. Next, I created these three sprites for the power-ups and then created a control node called HUD, and then created a power-up timer at the top of the screen. That was all for week 1. I loved week 1 because it was my favorite part of starting any project, creating the basics. In the coming future, I'll also have to create a knockback system so you get knocked back when you take damage, and I will also need to create a definite spreadsheet for the player, and I will need to create a health system and make the health sprites for the game. Here is the progress from week 1. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed starting this project and I am very excited to continue more of this. And yes, I have set up version control for this project so that I don't lose it. Unlike my previous project from when my old external hard drive died on me. Anyways, I will see you next week for next week's devlog. Goodbye.